Just over 1 month until Inauguration Day, President-elect Donald Trump promising mass deportations on day one, while at the same time suggesting he would work with Democrats on a plan for Dreamers, those who arrived here illegally as children. So what does it all mean for undocumented family members? Let's bring in NBC News correspondent and co-anchor of NBC News Daily, Morgan Radford, who's just back from a trip to the Texas-Mexico border where 14 out of 18 counties voted for Trump in the 2024 election, with some flipping Republican for the first time in decades. So, Morgan, what was the mood like there?
It's interesting. There's a lot of conflicting messages, but there's also a lot of open questions. The border is where we see a lot of these policies come to life and come to life very quickly. In fact, many there are sort of holding their collective breath, saying they were scared before, but they are terrified now. But still, a surprising number of migrants support the president-elect, even some of those who are currently in deportation proceedings. Take a look.
I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
For millions of Americans, immigration rhetoric,
you better start packing now,
could soon become a reality, including right here in Texas, home to an estimated 1.6 million unauthorized immigrants, and 18 border counties with majority or near majority Latino populations, 14 of which voted for President-elect Donald Trump this year. Here in Hidalgo County, on the Texas-Mexico border, voters had not elected a Republican for president since 1972. That is, until now.
You voted for Trump?
Yes.
If, in fact, there are mass deportations, does that worry you?
I think even though he made that particular political statement, it was just to corner, those votes for him to get elected.
But you don't think that's what Trump's actually going to do?
It's not going to happen.
Good morning, Officer Alex Martinez.
Local immigration attorneys say their phones are ringing off the hook.
Believe it or not, a lot of people that are here undocumented support President Trump. And we have never seen that in that way. Individuals that are even in deportation proceedings say that they agree with them in certain ways, and it's pretty shocking.
Your clients have told you this?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Why?
They believe that he is good for business. So to them, it seems easy that if they're removed somehow, that they simply come back in. But at the end of the day, what matters is that money's coming into the family and into their businesses.
But others here say day one of Trump means day one of terror.
People have a lot of anxiety and fear of what's to come.
Joaquin Garcia works with Lupe, a South Texas nonprofit that also provides legal services to undocumented people. One of several organizations across the country now holding information sessions in case of deportation.
Power of attorney for your kids. Have money saved, because if you're facing deportation, your bills are still going to have to get paid. Birth certificate of your country of origin, evidence that you've been paying taxes, and evidence that you've been living here in the U.S.
So the idea is that someone in the house knows exactly where these forms are,
yes,
knows where to get them, where to find them,
yes,
on day one.
On day one.
A scenario that's very real for people like Maria, who says she's lived here in the United States for 18 years.
Ahora estamos más que asustados, estamos atemorizados, torturados.
Now they're more than scared. They are terrorized.
Maria declined to share her last name or show her face out of fear of deportation. She pays $40 a month for access to legal and other services through Lupe.
¿Qué sería como el peor caso en estos momentos? For you and your family, what would be the worst case scenario in these moments?
Creo que sería una tortura porque tiempo para atrás tuve que dejar a mi hijo.
It would be torture for you because you already had to leave your son behind.
Sería como un ciclo.
And it would be like repeating the cycle.
Porque no quieren que...
The reason for her tears?
No llore. No llore.
She tells us although her two daughters were born here, she and her husband are both undocumented, making them exactly the kind of mixed status family the president-elect has been talking about.
I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together and you have to send them all back.
¿Había tanto miedo antes de Presidente Trump? Was there this much fear before President Trump?
Creo que si la administración pasada pudo hacer muchas cosas, Él no nos quiere simplemente por nuestro color, nos mira como personas sucias.
You're saying, before in the previous administration, things were okay, but now, especially, estamos hablando de Presidente Trump, we're talking about President Trump. You were saying he doesn't like us, that he thinks we're, dirty, he is discriminating against us because of our color of our skin, and that he doesn't want us here. ¿Qué quiere para usted, para su propia vida y para la vida de sus hijas? What do you want for yourself and for your daughter's lives?
Sabemos vivir con lo poquito que tenemos.
You just want to be together. You're not even looking for luxury. You know how to live off of a little. You just want to be together.
They just want to be together. I think it's really worth noting here that many people in these border counties, they have family who remember the last mass deportation campaign in the mid-1950s under Eisenhower. Hundreds of thousands, some estimate over 1 million people with Mexican last names, Mexican descent, were rounded up and sent to Mexico, even though many of them had come here legally through agreements between the two countries, and many of whom were actual American citizens. So a lot of people also, though, have strong memories more recently of the Obama administration, which saw more deportations than any other president in U.S. history.
Right, that's for sure. So have we ever seen this type of choice before, economy versus legality?
That is a great question. And in short, no. Right? The immigration attorney said this was different before. Now people are saying, look, as long as money is flowing into my pocket, even if I get deported, I can sneak back across the border illegally. And they said that the messaging around fear is working, but the messaging around the economy, specifically from the Trump team, is even stronger.
I've got to say it's remarkable as you look at the maps of, of all the things I saw on election night and after election night, the border counties, which used to all be blue.
Not anymore, Joe.
Not anymore. They have been shifting more red, but this time it's remarkable. What did you say? 14 out of 18 counties
there
voted for Donald Trump.
And Joe, what's fascinating is that it really surprised me, the depths of that stronghold. For example, it was wild that I heard people say Stephen Miller's name. Right? We're just casually interviewing people on the street. And the fact that Stephen Miller's name came up because they'd seen it on social media where he promised to turbocharge the denaturalization process. Some of the attorneys said that some people are choosing not to even go through the naturalization process because they're afraid that it will make them a target. So the fear is really something new and different. But this chokehold over this question of economy and what freedom comes with the economy, they think is even stronger than the freedom that comes with legality.
Eddie.
So, Morgan, what happens when we move from the abstract question of, the border, immigration, illegality, undocumented, to the actual human toll? We got it. You had this amazing moment with that interaction with the young woman who was undocumented and her family. What happens when we move from the abstraction to the actual effect of this policy on folks?
We see this all the time. In immigrant communities. We see this with Mexican Americans on the border. We see this with Cuban Americans in Miami, this sort of distance between the policy and the lived effect. I think what will really measure that is if we actually see prices go down to pre-pandemic levels. When people see the income and what happens and how they take care of putting food on their table, then I think we will see if that trade-off was really worth it in a day-to-day tactical, practical sense.
Guys, Morgan's excellent piece lays out perfectly what the Trump administration is going to bump up against, which I think a lot of Americans who voted for Donald Trump said if you're going to go in and get criminals, somebody who committed murder, somebody who shouldn't be in this country, go ahead, have at it. And that's what they're saying they're going to do. But when the reality of going and knocking on Maria's door and pulling her and her children out of this country and pushing them out, that gets a little more difficult. It's easy to say up at a rally in the summer of 2024. It's more difficult when you actually have to do it.
But Morgan, isn't it interesting if you listen to what Donald Trump has said, if you listen to what Homan said, if you listen to what other people around the Trump team have said, they're saying we're not going to send military vehicles and we're not going to tear out people that are living here peacefully. It does seem, phase one at least, they are talking about the hardened criminals and, in fact, push back on doing more than that.
Many people say that is a red herring. saying that we are coming against criminals is a red herring because, one, we've seen it before. They actually use military tactics to take people with Mexican last names and drop them off in Mexicali in 1955. So, one, we've seen them use the military to do before. Number two, this notion of deporting criminals, any immigration attorney will tell you the actual statistics of someone who is a criminal, who has gone through naturalization proceedings, is minuscule. It takes so many resources to even find those criminals. We don't even have the resources in place to find those people, the 0.001%, as one immigration attorney put it, of criminals who have gone through that process. So it's a bit of a red herring to say that we're only deporting the criminals, but that messaging has worked because there were lots of migrants who told me on this trip to the border, hey, they're not coming for me. They're not coming for my brother, but they're coming for the criminals. Mi amor. I don't know if the criminals, are going to be so easily found.
Well, and you bring up a bigger point and a more important point, Jonathan, one that we've talked about before, how expensive it is to do this. And the idea that you're going to sweep up, people are saying, oh, we want you to get 10 or 11 million illegal immigrants out. No, it's we saw Barack Obama deported more over 8 years than Donald Trump did over 4, because it's, in the immortal words of George W. Bush, it's hard. It's hard. And it costs a ton of money.
Yeah, the numbers they're talking about, it's almost unfathomable, the idea of the resources, the manpower that they would need to do this, the political will and capital, especially when there are already states and some local jurisdictions saying they won't cooperate.
NBC's Morgan Radford, thank you. That was extremely compelling.